We, a few weeks ago, had the WCA Global Legislative Assembly in Alabama. It was on a Friday, and they considered important legislation to help get us to the place where the Global Methodist Church will be ready to form after the protocol passes. The day after the Legislative Assembly was the global gathering where those who were in Alabama got to hear some teaching, wonderful teaching, and also engage in some meaningful worship. So we have asked two of the elected delegates to Alabama from Western Pennsylvania to come and share their views, to share what happened in Alabama and the joys and everything else. So Brenda, Neil.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say that it was a blessing, and I was humbled to be chosen to go to Alabama to represent Western Pennsylvania as one of the 6 laity delegates. On my way up to Conneaut Lake area this morning, I was listening to the message on the radio, and one of the people that was interviewing people and being interviewed, he said that every day he tries to breathe in Jesus and breathe out, you have my attention. So Jesus, you have my attention. And it finally hit me that that sums up my time in Alabama, is that Jesus, you have my attention. So one of the things that was said down there is, if we don't want to be eaten alive by this culture, we must train. Just like if you are on a sports team, you have to train. If you want to run a marathon, you can't just go out tomorrow and run a marathon. You have to build up to that. You have to train. If you are in the arts and you're in a band or a chorus group, you have to practice. You have to practice together so that you can perform. We, as a church, need to train so that we can go forth and do what God has called us to do. There will be challenging times ahead of us, but Jesus is with us, and it is all about him. One of the speakers, Crystal Gold, said something that really spoke to me. She said, "We will have to cross enemy lines. God is going to stretch us." And if I'm honest, that scares me. Do I want to cross enemy lines? No. Do I want to be stretched out of that box in my comfort zone? No, not really. But I know that that is what God is calling myself and many of us to do. But as we cross those enemy lines and as God stretches us, Jesus is going to be with us. About 11 years ago now, I was listening to someone speak, and they said something that I've sort of held on to for 11 years, and it is, God's timing is perfect. He is never early or he is never late, but he is always right on time. So thinking about that and everything that we have been through and what is to come, we all are anxious about stuff and about the things in our church. We thought and we wanted this to all be said and done last year or 2 years ago, but 2020 happened and everything got derailed. But God knew 2020 was going to happen. He knew that it wasn't time yet. We are still in the time period of training so that we are ready to step out. So for now, we must be patient in his timing and start to live into the future now. And how do we do that? We do that by educating others as to what is going on and proclaiming his name as we move forward into what will be his perfect timing.
As a laity delegate to the Legislative Assembly down in Alabama, I went with a lot of the same questions that many of you do, as well as our other churches in Western Pennsylvania. But I also went with great expectations. You see, both my grandfathers were Methodist preachers, and 3 of my uncles were Methodist preachers, and all but one were preachers here in Western Pennsylvania. My roots in Methodism run deep. While in Alabama, I quickly learned that the Western Pennsylvania WCA was just a small portion of a great big picture. We had 240 in-person delegates. We had another 40 people that were with us virtually, attending with like-minded men and women from California, Missouri, Florida, Alabama, North Carolina, Colorado. You get the picture. They're from all over the country. While it's very difficult to condense hours of legislative discussion into just a few moments, I'd like to summarize a few of the themes that resonated with me. Patience. Yes, the question of how much and how long came up. Sure, there were comments made with great emotion, but what I heard was that while some in our conference may be tired of waiting and are growing weary for the protocol to be voted on, we need to remain aware of our brothers and sisters in other conferences. They need our support, a unified support, until that final vote is taken and a new church emerges. I learned that what will happen with regard to General Conference in the weeks and the months ahead, they're out of my control. They're out of our control. All we can do is control what we can control through prayer and unity within our Western Pennsylvania WCA. Boy, was I encouraged to hear the words of Speaker Bob Kaler as he said that as the Global United Methodist Church is launched, we have a wonderful opportunity to start down the right path, not the wide path that many who lose heart might choose, but instead the narrow path that our global leadership team has been working on for several years, the formation of a new denomination. What I heard was that we do have a clear destination and a method to achieve that destination. There will be many models as our new church is launched. It won't be a one-size-fits-all. As our churches transition, we're going to see an exciting emergence of deeply committed church members that will breathe enthusiasm into our churches with small groups and intentional ministries. Steve Cordell, another speaker, encouraged me with his explanation of church multiplication, that there will be a revived culture that will empower our churches to plant new churches, new local churches, or the launching of additional sites, particularly in communities where Wesleyan traditions aren't present in worship. Time doesn't permit me to go into more detail, but the task force resolutions presented and voted on in Alabama assured me that we have men and women who have been working on just how our new denomination will be launched. Plans and details and all of those things that are planned out for implementation. I'm excited and I'm encouraged by what I've learned about how the WCA will have great input as the Global Methodist Church is formed and then launched. I look forward to sharing with Methodists around our connection a message of hope, of love, of forgiveness, and of peace as we all begin living into the future.